Good evening and welcome. We begin today's news wrap and update with the Biden-Harris administration recovery effort on Hurricane Helene. The President Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris announced that they will travel to North Carolina and Georgia tomorrow, respectively, to tour the communities and get additional briefing updates on the administration recovery effort. President Biden will travel to the FEMA local office in Raleigh, and where he will be briefed on the administration recovery effort and the local with and also meet with local and state officials. Vice President Kamala Harris will travel to Georgia, where she will tour communities and as well as meet with local and state elected officials and person individuals and community that are affected in their community. The president today approved 7 states' requests for emergency assistance and have deployed over 1,000 personnel to support communities in Georgia, in North Carolina, in Tennessee, and other, as well as Florida and other area in the southeast area region in the U.S. that are affected by the hurricane Helene. Earlier today, the Homeland Secretary Mayorkas briefed media on the administration recovery effort. Here is some of his remark from today's briefing.
Good afternoon. Before standing at the podium, I was at FEMA's National Operations Center being briefed by our personnel as well as state emergency personnel. I thought it very moving and very telling that North Carolina's Emergency Management Director described Hurricane Helene as catastrophic and noted the fact that numerous towns situated along the river had virtually disappeared, had been completely destroyed. In fact, Hurricane Helene is of an historic magnitude. This many states hit this hard. The wind field of the hurricane stretched 350 miles from its center. More than 100 fatalities have been reported, hundreds and hundreds of homes and businesses destroyed. Our hearts break for those who have lost loved ones, and we pray for the swift assistance and rescue of those who are currently missing. We are in different phases of a post-hurricane environment depending on the state and the location within the state. In some areas, we are still in search and recovery, search and rescue operations. In others, we are in fact in the response and recovery phase. I thought I would give you some of the latest statistics based on the briefing that I received. And I should say that these numbers are, as you can all well understand, quite dynamic and fluid. They change minute by minute and hour by hour. But just as devastating as the hurricane has been, the response of federal, state, and local authorities has been extraordinary. We have more than 2,000 federal personnel dedicated to this effort. On the ground, we have more than 1,200 urban search and rescue personnel. FEMA staff deployed, over 1,200. Corinne mentioned the major disaster declarations and the emergency declarations previously issued. I should note that in the 6 states most severely impacted, the emergency declarations were issued before the storm hit, and we had thousands of personnel dedicated there. We have delivered more than 2.6 million ready-to-eat meals and more than 1 million liters of water. At its peak, there were 5.1 million customers without power. We have reduced that amount, and not just the federal government in support of the state and local authorities, but working very closely with the power companies and the other utilities. We've reduced that number of customers without power by 3.8 million people. And so the operation is very, very significantly underway. We are working in support of our state and local partners. This is an all of government, frankly, all of community effort.
Moving to other stories that we are also following, now we're moving to Africa. Today, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, the African Center, held a host the presidents of Gabon as well as other delegation from Gabon for a meeting on strengthening the economic and trade ties between the U.S. and Africa, between the U.S. and Gabon. And the president and his delegation also met with all the American private sector to discuss how to continue to build on the relationship between the U.S. and the private sector, and as well as the public sector also, as well. Senior administration officials have also traveled to Gabon within the past 2 years, and in fact the U.S. is working with Gabon on maritime initiative to protect the biodiversity in the region, as well as other initiatives. And we will be providing additional updates on the meeting that took place at the U.S. Chambers of Commerce. And speaking of commercial and trade, the U.S. and Kenya strategic trade discussion that we reported last month that will take place in the 8th negotiation concluded yesterday, and the officials, the U.S. Kenya 8th U.S. strategic trade and investment partnership negotiation, as I said, concluded yesterday, and there will be additional information from the U.S. U.S. Representative Ambassador Catherine Tai. This negotiation is built on President Ruto's visit, and it is a negotiation, as we reported, that started in 2022. Right after the administration came into office, and they've been working on this, and we expect that before the end of the President Biden term that perhaps there will be a conclusion and agreement between the two countries. Moving to another story that we are focusing on, the U.S. Ambassador to the UN, Ambassador Linda Thomas-Greenfield, met with the Foreign Minister of Mali. They held a bilateral meeting yesterday to reaffirm U.S. commitment to the Malian people, and the ambassador urged the transitional government to keep their commitment to schedule and hold election. She also condemned the recent terrorist attack that took place in the country. And speaking of security, the U.S. Special Envoy for Sudan, as we reported yesterday, arrived in Nairobi, and he met with Sudanese refugees as well as humanitarian workers that are helping those that have been displaced and those that are affected by the ongoing war in Sudan and in South Sudan. And they continue to ask for additional assistance, additional humanitarian assistance. We also reported yesterday that the U.S. government announced a $500 million humanitarian aid to support the refugees as well as the displaced people in South Sudan, that are spread across the continent, as well in Lebanon, in Chad, as well as in part of Middle East as well. We will continue to follow his trip. He will also travel to Ethiopia, and we will continue to bring you additional updates on that story as well. So moving to another story that we are focusing on, Mauritania Foreign Minister, the U.S. Secretary, the U.S. Assistant Secretary for African Affairs, Molifi, met with the Foreign Minister of Mauritania at the State Department to renew the relationship between the U.S. and Mauritania. Mauritania is currently of the African Union. Right now, and earlier this year, the President Biden sent a delegation to the inauguration of the president. He also attended the G7 Leaders Summit in Italy, and the U.S. delegation that attended was to his inauguration. Its second time inauguration was led by MCC President and CEO Alice Albright. We will continue to follow that story as well and bring you additional updates. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken today met with the Moroccan Foreign Minister at the State Department. Yesterday, the Foreign Minister was part of the global coalition to defeat ISIS. The mini-series meeting that was held yesterday at the State Department, and today's meeting is to build on the security effort, the security relation between the U.S. and Morocco, as well as other trade and economic relationship between the two countries. The Malawi president is also in Washington D.C. Yesterday, he met with the IMF managing director to talk about economic growth as well as reform. And today, he met with senior officials of the World Bank to discuss energy access, boosting affordable and clean energy access to the people of the country. We've reported about this. Malawi is one of the countries in the southern region of Africa that are significantly affected by climate crisis. On one hand, there is drought. On the other hand, there is flood. So the country and the president have been working with the U.S. as well as other multilateral company, financial institution to help recover in this country recovering effort. We will continue to provide additional updates on that as well. I'm just gonna take a quick note on my a quick look on my notes to make sure I'm not missing anything. Yesterday there was an announcement that we forgot to mention to you. The NBA Hall of Famer, the DRC Dikembe Mutombo, the basketball legend that is well known in the U.S. as well as in Africa. He was also a philanthropist. Passed away yesterday, surrounded by his family. He passed away from brain cancer. He was 58 years old. We will continue. Many people, including the former President Bill Clinton, as well as NBA basketball and the vice chairman of NBA Raptor also paid tribute, as well as African Development Bank President Akinwumi Adesina all paid tribute to his contribution that he has made to not just the U.S. As well as to Africa and his country. We will continue to provide updates on that as well. And speaking of cancer, this month, as you can see today, I'm wearing pink. This month is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and throughout this month, we will be bringing you stories as well as information. The cancer is not something that just affects U.S. is a global issue that significantly affects women, and the Biden-Harris administration, through the Cancer Moonshot program, have invested significantly through the National Institute of Health, and as well as the First Lady initiative, Women Health Initiative, to look at ways to develop therapeutic drugs that we address cancer, various cancers. So we will be bringing you updates throughout this month, as well as remind women to take their mammogram, not to forget to take their mammogram this month. So I think that is, again, I'm just going to take a quick lastly. The CDC announced that they are working with Rwanda Health Ministry regarding the Marburg virus in the country. 26 people, 26 individuals have died from the disease, and the CDC have deployed more people to help the country as they work to combat the outbreak. The Marburg virus is similar to Ebola, and the CDC said currently there is no report cases in the U.S. So I believe this concludes our news and updates today. Thank you very much for watching. We see you tomorrow. Have a good night. I'm Kemi Oshikoya. Thank you.